Come on, guys. I have been waiting and waiting and waiting for 2 months now. What is going on? Okay. I've been waiting here for 2 months, guys, and I have not gotten a call from either one of you. You don't answer my text. You don't answer my messages on Facebook. You guys obviously hate my guts. I don't know what's going on. So if you're not going to answer me on Facebook, I'm going to personally Google you guys and Google Hangout with you guys since we don't use any Skype anymore. So shut up, dog! Yeah, you. Okay, let me try Ben. Come on, Ben. Answer the phone. Okay, what is this? Oh. Out of town, on vacation, and enjoying some paradise with my wife and son. Okay, fine. Ian. Okay, Ian, come on. You better be there, man. You better be there. Come on. Oh, what? Engaged? What do you mean engaged? Who in the world would have been attracted to that guy? Come on! Oh no, that leaves me with Josh. Of all the people in the world, why did I have to get stuck with Josh? Oh gosh. Do I really want to Skype with Josh? Maybe I'll go ahead and just ignore him. Yeah, I'll do that instead. I mean, I don't really like Josh that much. I mean, to be very honest, I've never liked Joshua. Oh! You're not offended, are you?
Offended about what?
What I just... Oh, well, you didn't hear what I said, did you? You're not offended?
No. Yeah.
Cue the music! Well, everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Story to Screen podcast, movie podcast where we review all different kinds of movies, both new and old. I am your host, Chris, and with me tonight is, of course, the person that I highly offended off air, or on air, depending, is Joshua Ling. Hey, Josh, how's it going?
I'm so offended, I am completely unoffended. It feels great.
It's been a good long time since you've been offended, right?
Actually, yeah, I think so.
So you needed to get...
I don't get offended too.
Yeah, I mean, I need to insult you once in a while. I mean, I need to, as they say, like, throw some swines before pigs, or what is that quote that people say?
Yes, swines and pigs.
Anyway, folks, I do want to apologize real quickly that, I know we've been absent for a little while. 2 months, actually. Like, this is, honestly, I know we've kind of posted before on our Facebook pages, we're doing this, we're doing that, new episodes coming soon. To be kind of honest, unexpected things just came our way. Bad weather conditions, just, especially with, like, the recent hurricanes that occurred in Texas and Florida, kind of caused some problems with our internet services, and we just couldn't communicate properly since I'm the one recording us, and so that just caused a hurdle. And also I was knee deep in a new job that I'm currently working at right now. I'm working with Caligaz Photography. It's a camera store and a place where we do all different types of photography related products, and been enjoying it, and I've been kind of putting my heart and soul into that right now, and also working on a film project, which I talked about on a recent video that I posted on the Facebook pages. But But yeah, no, we have tried. No, it's not that we haven't tried. We have been trying very hard. It's just our schedules have been, again, the circumstances and also our personal lives as well. I mean, we haven't forgotten you guys. It's just been really hard for us to really do something and just get together. I mean, this is just literally the first time that we've been able to get together and do this. So, but Josh, I mean, you got your new baby coming very soon, which you just revealed was a baby girl. So congratulations right there.
Yep, I'm excited about that. Hazel Ann should be here January 23rd or around thereabouts. I've also started getting my Rhyme and Space work published with a blogazine called Fellowship Fairy Dust. So that's been exciting. You have the camera stuff. I've got the camera store stuff. I've got the publishing going on, and seems we're moving up in the world, bro.
Yeah, hopefully we'll get some more respectability. I can't even talk tonight, people. My God, respectability. So
it's okay. It's all right.
I'm sick, people. I have a condition.
Relax. No, Jabberjaw don't get no respect. You have a condition. Yes. That joke never gets old.
I found some new ways that we can improve that joke. So that, and I know, right? Which, by the way,
hey, yeah.
By the way, congratulations to Ian for actually, first of all, for being the originator with that quote, and also he is engaged.
Well, he wasn't though. Well, I would say he would be, but he wasn't though. If you actually go back and look at the Sissy reviews. From Abigail and I back in the mid to late 2000s. Yeah, she was saying "I know right" as a tagline for her Sissy reviews way back then. So
Oh, okay. So there's a copyright claim on that one.
But yes, they well, they both do it so well. I think Abigail's willing to share the royalties.
Yeah. Zero royalties because we don't get paid for any of this stuff. As of right now, Story to Screen on YouTube.
I know, right?
Yeah. As of right now, YouTube on the YouTube channel, we've grossed approximately $1.30. So I can find a way to split that up 5 ways. Why don't we?
You're not actually drunk, sir.
I am. I think I am. I can't talk tonight. I can't do anything right. I mean,
you're drunk on Jesus' love.
I think so. I've been listening to too much Joel Osteen. Take that, Joel.
Oh no. Oh.
Instead of attending church lately, I've actually
that'll make you wish you were drunk.
I think it'll take me intoxicated. I think that's the best word for it.
There you go.
See, we're smashing religions right in people's faces. I mean, we've criticized Joel Osteen in a shameful way. I mean, that man suffers from a very
criticized Joel Osteen. I'm pretty sure Joel Osteen's criticized Joel Osteen.
Yeah, well, if he has, he's done it behind closed doors. And while he's counting all his money, it's like, honey, where are we going to go on vacation on next? Where are we going to go?
It's like the real life Scrooge McDuck.
Yeah. I was going to call him something else, but I'm not going to go there. Anyway, folks, tonight's movie review is the Tim Burton classic, The Nightmare Before Christmas. But before we go into that, Josh, what have you been watching lately? Anything good?
Well, just watched 4 movies in the past, probably within the past 24 hours, yeah.
Nice!
Yeah, I've been catching up on some, I guess, oldies but goodies. I don't know, really, but the first of the 4 was Bad Teacher.
The one with Cameron Diaz? Oh my
god. I have
God.
to say, it was it was better than I expected it to be, but it was definitely, weird and crazy. It reminded me a lot of School of Rock, but with less heart and more just vengeance. So take that for what it's worth. And then the next one that we watched was Hide and Seek from the early 2000s with Robert De Niro.
Ooh.
And that's a horror movie. One of it was tropey, but it was well executed. Kind of a I won't spoil exactly, but creepy little girl kind of story.
Oh, is that the one with Dakota
Fanning?
Is that the one with Dakota Fanning as the girl?
It is Dakota Fanning, yes.
Oh, okay, yes. Yeah, I remember that movie, but then it came and went. So I didn't know if...
Right, yeah.
Just kind of...
Well, it kind of has, yeah, it has a mixed rating on a lot of the sites and everything. Kind of like Signs. A lot of people really hate Signs for whatever reason. A lot of people really love Signs for whatever reason. It's kind of one of those, where it's got a lot of tropes. It's cheesy, but it is like it's a tropey horror movie that is psychological and more old school than gore slasher kind of thing.
Okay.
The next one I saw was The Secret Window, which is a Stephen King story with Johnny Depp in it.
Oh, yes.
I don't know if you've heard of that one.
You've been watching a lot of interesting kind of forgotten movies that either people... Right. At least those two right there,
Exactly.
Hide and Seek. Yeah, Bad Teacher, yeah, people can't forget about that, but...
but yeah, often, but this one was really good. And then the last one that we watched, those three had come from the library. I think that's the reason why, we're poor people, poor married first year people, and so going to the library and getting DVDs is awesome. And Casey really wanted to watch these three. She had seen them before and wanted to share them with me.
Sure.
And then the last one I had seen, but she had not seen, and we just finished that up before beginning our Skype tonight. Is Cruel Intentions with Buffy. What's her face? Sarah Michelle.
Oh yeah, and Reese, yeah, her and Reese Witherspoon and Ryan Goss. No, not Ryan Gosling.
Yes.
Ryan Phillippe.
No, it's yep. And that one is, I don't know if you've seen it, Chris. The first two acts of the movie feel like a bad soft, like they're just really, really over the top, hammy sexual acting. And then like the final act is just like I don't even know how to explain it without spoiling it. It's like catharsis.
Okay.
It actually like it's very much a Breakfast Club, but that way, where you see a lot of horrible people doing horrible things, and then they start to get honest with each other.
Yeah. Like I remember.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. I don't know why I was thinking of Fatal Attraction. Yeah, Cruel Intentions. Yeah, that yeah, that's a movie that that's like a cult classic favorite. And I remember seeing the cover to that movie, and the cover speaks for itself, people. So I'm not going to say very much about it, but
it really does.
Yeah. How was
if you well, I was just going to say, if you read the back of the box, you know what you're in for. But.
Yeah. But how was Sarah Michelle Gellar in that one? Because I know that's kind of one of her trademark films out there.
I won't use the word. I won't use the word a lot of people use, but as far as and this is an understatement, mean girl kind of role, both the role, the character, and Sarah Michelle Gellar's performance are like the most reprehensible mean girl you could ever imagine.
Mm-hmm.
I have never seen another Mean Girl in any other film, including Mean Girls, that comes anywhere even like remotely close to Sarah Michelle Gellar. I hate her as much as I hate any villain in any movie ever.
Wow.
She is quite possibly the most hateable female villain in any film that I've ever seen. I'll be honest with you.
Wow.
She is immaculate in how well she does that role. Granted, the role is cheesy and corny and over the top and hilarious at times, but she just owns it. You know what I'm saying?
Sure, absolutely.
It's like watching Tim Curry as the Rocky Horror Picture Show character that he plays. Where he just completely owns it. It's a terrible, like, over the top, ridiculous thing, but he just owns it. You know what I'm saying?
She's reveling in it. Like, you think she's just reveling in the part. Okay.
Yes. Okay. So yeah.
Okay. Interesting picks. Bad Teacher, Hide and Seek. Secret Windows. I need to see Secret Windows because I actually heard Johnny Depp was really good in that. Actually,
he was very, very good in it. I think it's one of his better performances, and I love Jack Sparrow. He's been in too many movies, obviously, the character.
Yeah.
But I think his performance is up there with as far as quality with Jack Sparrow, but it's obviously way more nuanced than Jack Sparrow.
I heard
it's definitely one of Johnny Depp's better roles.
Yeah, I heard it didn't do very good, so that's kind of I'm kind of a little sad. But anyway, I do want to check that one out. Anyway, I just want to kind of have a shout out for 2 movies that I saw. Movies that I also rented from the library too.
The library's awesome.
I know they're bringing in
guys. You should go more.
Yeah, they're bringing in more newer and older movies at the same time. I kind of got my hands on a couple of movies. There's first of all, Man from U.N.C.L.E. or The Man from U.N.C.L.E., the Guy Ritchie movie from a couple of years ago that stars Armie Hammer and Superman himself from Man of Steel, Henry Cavill. This is a very good little action movie, spy thriller type of movie, and it's done in that kind of style of the 60s type of spy thriller. And Henry Cavill is just the thing that shocked me the most was how good Henry Cavill is in the movie. I mean, I've told you this before, but he honestly he oozes charisma. He just has so much charisma that his Superman, he makes his Superman look like a high school play performance.
Right.
Like it really
I think that he's getting too much direction as far as Superman goes, if that makes sense.
Or he's just told to act in a certain way that doesn't yield the best results for Superman, I would say. But no, he's surrounded by
something like that. But Henry Cavill's definitely a good actor. I've seen even just bits and pieces of Man from U.N.C.L.E. on a few other things that he's done, and even just some interviews. You can tell he's a charismatic guy that can act. Like he can put on a show.
He's very charming. He's a very charming guy. Like he kind of in some ways kind of reminds me of a Cary Grant meets Christopher Reeve type of personality. He's very. Mm-hmm. He's very approachable. I like him in that movie a lot. And check it out, dude. If you just check it out, if for no other reason than that, and also just some great action scenes too. It's got some really good moments in it. So and also The Passion of Joan of Arc, which is a old French silent film. I've actually been watching it because I have been. I'm kind of using it as an inspiration for my upcoming short film, and it's a very, very interesting kind of movie. Have you heard of this movie, by the way? The Passion of Joan of Arc?
I haven't, but it sounds really interesting.
Basically, it's the aftermath of Joan of Arc's exploitations as a soldier and as a leader, all that stuff. So basically, she's on trial in front of an English court. So she's already been captured and all that stuff. But and they're kind of sitting there, kind of questioning her about her decisions. But the interesting thing is that it's very, very acting driven. Like, and it's also done on one set, which is peculiar. Like everybody is just. It's like what is it? 12 Angry Men in that sense.
Okay, yeah.
It's very much like that. Except the camera is like the camera is like super tight on everyone's faces, and everyone is like making that particular moment count with their expressions. There's no wide shots. There's none of these. There's some, but not a whole lot. Like when it cuts to Joan or one of the English priests or counselors there, the director really goes in for some massive close-ups that are like, oh, you're really trying to show us the performance here, which was really interesting. It's a really fascinating film, and if you like the story of Joan of Arc, you might find this to be a very interesting kind of performance-driven type of film. And it's really good. It's really good. I highly recommend it. But yeah, that's what I've been kind of watching lately. Anyway, folks, let's go ahead and go into our review for Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas.
Welcome to an extraordinary world filled with magic and wonder. Open your mind and let yourself go to a place where every day is Halloween and every night Jack Skellington
I am the Pumpkin King!
dreams of something different.
What is this? It's someplace new.
Jack, look out!
Whoa!
What's this? What's this? There's color everywhere. What's this? There's white things in the air. What's this? I can't believe my eyes. I must be dreaming. Wake up, Jack. This isn't fair.
What is this?
Haven't you heard of peace on earth and goodwill toward men?
Touchstone Pictures presents the enchanting story of two very special dreamers and the holiday spirit that brought them together. From the imagination of Tim Burton comes The Nightmare Before Christmas.
And what did Santa bring you, honey?
What you just heard was the original trailer for The Nightmare Before Christmas. It was directed by Henry Selick and produced by Tim Burton. People tend to give Burton a lot of credit for this movie, which is due, but it was really Henry Selick's movie, actually. It also stars Chris Sheridan and Danny Elfman as the singing voice of Jack Skellington, Catherine O'Hara, and William Hickey as mayor of Halloween Town. But before I go into our review, Josh, why don't you read the plot synopsis just real quickly?
Boys and girls of every age, wouldn't you like to see something strange?
Come with us and you will see.
Jack Skellington, the Pumpkin King of Halloween Town, is bored with doing the same thing every year for Halloween. One day he stumbles into Christmas Town and is so taken with the idea of Christmas that he tries to get the resident bats, ghouls, and goblins of Halloween Town to help him put on Christmas instead of Halloween. But alas, they can't quite get it right.
So, anyway, this is a, one of those landmarks 90s films, Joshua. This was one of those, that image of, like, Jack, going, the silhouette of Jack against the moon and him walking down that, the twirling hill is a very iconic...
Mount Crumpet.
Yeah. It's one of those iconic images from, like...
It's Mount Crumpet from The Grinch.
But, Josh, what has been your relationship with this film? And do you also view this as a Halloween or Christmas movie?
I see it more as a Christmas movie, personally. Mainly because the word Christmas is in the title. And it tends to have a little bit more focus, I think, on, even though the setting is Halloween Town more so, it has more of a focus on Christmas. But I've only seen it toward the beginning of this year. I did not grow up with this movie. I'd seen it around, but it was one that my parents did not allow me to watch. And even as I grew up, I wasn't all that interested in it. For some reason, just darkness and goth aesthetic never really caught on with me. I tend to be a very colorful, bright person. So it just never really grabbed me the way it grabbed a lot of people. But I definitely agree. I could not get away from the imagery in this movie during the 90s, and still really can't get away from it now, to be honest with you.
No, neither have I think the first time I saw this was on UPN. Do you remember UPN, the network television station? Do you remember that?
Oh yeah, they showed WWE SmackDown for years.
Yes, and a lot of other like teen soaps that never really made it off the ground after 1 or 2 seasons. So a lot of careers.
Was it Buffy on there for a while or something?
For what I'm aware of, they carried shows from the CW or the WB onto that network, and they aired some stuff from there. But
okay, that's what it was.
I think so. And maybe occasional Fox shows. So they didn't really, well, I think they did create some original stuff, but it didn't last very long. But yeah, this is a movie. I have not seen this movie in like 20 years. I think I saw it like 2-3 times as a kid. And kind of for the same reasons as well. I think as my mom and dad kind of caught on to some stuff, it's like, maybe you shouldn't watch this anymore. So kind of ignored it. And I just revisited not that long ago for this review. And it's a very interesting piece of animation. I mean, it's a very beautiful piece of animation. I mean, like I have, and it really kind of sprung or it really made you. What is that noise behind us? Is that Casey doing stuff?
Oh, you heard that? I thought I had my mic muted.
Yeah, no.
Sorry.
Yeah.
My bad. I was reclining my futon.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I heard like all this crashing. I'm like, oh, what's going on? But anyway, yeah, it's one of those pieces of. Let me say this again. That I couldn't get away from, and it's the one that's always made an impression in my mind. But revisiting it again, it's actually not really the best plot. Well, let me say this again. Let me eliminate that. I think this is the very distinct film that you can point to and say, okay, this is what a Tim Burton movie looks like. This is what a Tim Burton movie is. And I think even though he wasn't the director on this one, you definitely feel his hand on this one. I mean, this was his baby as far as I'm aware of. And he definitely had a lot of creative input and the story, but yeah, you know, I mean, would you say that this is like the definitive Tim Burton movie in every sense of the word?
Yeah, I don't think there's any other movie that I think of when I think of Tim Burton, like right away. You know, when you think of Tim Burton's work, you pretty much immediately think of Jack Skellington in your mind. He's, like you were saying earlier, an iconic image. He's an iconic character, really. Like, I think carries somewhat of a thin plot, you know, with beautiful animation is the fact that Jack is not only expressive physically, but also the voice and just generally the design of Jack is just so expressive and cartoony in a good way, and in a way that is so unique from any other character. I can't think of another character that's expressive in quite the same way as Jack. He can go from scary to endearing to sad in just very quick spans. And it's almost like if the Doctor had an emo cousin.
He would be it.
You know what I'm saying?
Maybe
Jack Skellington. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yep. Maybe instead of doing a woman, maybe they should have done a skeleton instead for the regeneration. That would work for me, I think.
There you go. I think he should regenerate as a Dalek. I think he should regenerate as a Dalek, but that's just me.
Okay. It's funny. Do you remember this story from Adventures in Odyssey? And I think it's also a biblical story as too. Maybe you can help me remember it. Do you remember this story about the function? Like, what was it again? It was like a radiator kind of Adventures in Odyssey show where it was about the parts of the body and it had to work properly and they had a specific function.
Yeah, it's the body of Christ kind of situation. Yeah, body of Christ was the analogy that they were doing it was kind of like a no pun intended, fleshing out of the body of Christ analogy that Paul uses in the New Testament, to say that the body of Christ has all kinds of different parts that are equal but work together toward a common goal, and you can't have a foot without an ankle and blah 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 blah. And so the idea is that that in Odyssey they kind of fleshed that out and made the characters. They actually did like a narrative with various parts trying to leave the body, and everything crumbling. So
yeah. So, and in a way, I kind of seen that being Jack Skellington's kind of arc. Like, he's definitely not content being the Halloween, the king of Halloween. Oh, I'm sorry, the Pumpkin King, of Halloween Town, and now he's kind of functioning with outside his so-called jurisdiction that he can play in. Like, he wants to exist in another realm. He wants to exist as something else that he can't be. Like which honestly, it's funny too. The character Jack in the Adventures in Odyssey episode is trying to function in something that, it was John Lafitte. That's what it was. Yeah, John Lafitte in the Adventures in Odyssey episode. He was trying to function as something that he was incapable of doing. That's the same kind of arc, and I don't know if in some ways, that episode of Odyssey was inspired by this particular movie, or if it came from something, if it came more specifically from the Bible.
I think it more specifically came from the situation in the Bible. But yeah, there's definitely somewhat of a parallel there.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on the story? Do you think it works as a plot? Because one of my biggest problems with the plot is that I don't think the character relationships are as very well defined, but that's kind of what a Tim Burton movie is. It's very superficial at points. Like, for example, I think like Jack and Sally, the ragdoll girlfriend. Like, why is she so attracted to him? Why is she so? Does she pity him? I mean, like, what is she drawn to about this guy? I mean, do they even have a pre-existing kind of romantic relationship? I don't think so.
Right. Well, I'll get into why in just a second. Like, I think that the relationships are sort of ill-defined, as you were saying. I think there is a reason for it, but I wanted to point out one other that I find even more more, not disturbing. Disturbing is not the word. It's perplexing. Maybe is the word that I'm going for. Like, why we don't know more about these characters, and that's Oogie Boogie. To be honest with you, because we really don't get a sense of why he is where he is, what he did, what he can do, how dangerous he actually is, why everybody's afraid of him, what he did to go there. All these other questions. He tends to be the biggest weird question mark for me, but I think the reason that they decided to go with that sort of thing, although a little bit of something would have been nice for Oogie Boogie, is the idea that this is, I mean, when you really look at the story, it is a kid's book.
Yeah.
Like, you can see this thing being read to you in narration, and I wouldn't be surprised if whoever first drafted this, and maybe it is a kid's book and I don't know about it, but I know
it was from Tim Burton's story ideas. I don't know if it was published into a book or not. That's what I'm aware of.
But I could see like the original idea, the original draft being written as a children's book, because really children's books have a very basic 3-act kind of situation, and this one I think it's Jack wants something, Jack is to get something, Jack fails but realizes it's okay to fail, and I think even more than just doing something outside of your own league, and doing what you do best, and that's what makes you special. Like, that's definitely a message there. But another thing that I got out of it, big time, is it's okay to fail. It's okay to try and experiment and fail, because Jack wasn't ashamed. He was at first ashamed that he failed, but then there's that one particular song that he kind of is spilling out all his feelings. You know which one I'm talking about? And,
yeah.
He kind of gets almost angry sounding, but in more of a triumphant way. Like, well, I tried and I failed, but I'm still the Pumpkin King. It's like, I don't remember the exact lyrics, but there's just that feeling, and I think the whole story is actually kind of encompassed in that one song. And it's a very, very simple story with a little bit of action thrown in with Oogie Boogie, because Oogie Boogie really isn't like a villain. He's more of like the ticking time bomb.
Because he seems. I mean, they hint him at the opening moments of the opening theme song with Halloween Town. This is Halloween Town. You see his face on the moon, but you don't really get a sense of who he is and what he wants. I mean, with Mr. He's Mr. Sun, Mr. Icicle.
Heat Miser.
Yes, Heat Miser. Yeah.
Miser, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, those were, I think, far more defined bad guys in every sense of the word. I think he was a more well-defined than Boogeyman ever was, or Oogie Boogie. But he didn't seem to have much of a threat other than like wanting to get Santa Claus out of the way. I don't know.
He was only getting Santa Claus out of the way because Santa Claus fell into his clutches in the first place. Really,
it was more a coincidence. It was more like coincidence.
Like the kids are more the villains. Those couple creepy kids are more actually the villains than Oogie Boogie, and they don't really get any kind of comeuppance, if I remember correctly.
No, I don't think so. Now you mentioned the music. There's a particular type of music that I kind of like and don't like, and the music and the lyrics kind of reminded me that of like an Andrew Lloyd Webber, like the Phantom of the Opera type of music, where it's just like, it's like people having conversation through lyrics and singing. And Jack, when he's doing that, when he's going up the hill and he's like kind of trying to figure he is and what he wants, what he's feeling and all that stuff, he seems to be, he just spouts words out. There's no lyrics. There's no rhythm.
Right. Yeah. It's
not
metered, I think, is the word that you're really looking for. It's not a metered rhyme scheme. It's more of a free verse rhyme scheme, and it tends to meander in its melodies. And I know what you're talking about. It's definitely very consistent with like the Lloyd Webber situation. Although he does do metered stuff too.
Yeah, I
think that.
Well, I was thinking. I was going to say, like, he reminded me like of like Danny Kaye kind of music numbers, like where he's just spouting stuff. There's no rhythm to what he's saying at all. Like none.
Right. A lot of that has to do with meter. When you write a poem, you certain number of syllables per. In what they're doing, there is no consistent syllables or a rhyming pattern. It's actually like it rhymes, but you could say something like it's the difference between and Jesus loves me because the Bible, and I love him, and Jesus loves me and I love him. Like, that rhymes really badly, but the point is it does rhyme, but it doesn't have the same meter. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah, have stood out to you. I know you're kind of new to it, but what are some of the things that have stood out to you? What do you think the movie does get right?
Like I was saying, the idea that you could try and fail, I think that's actually a very liberating and very, understated message. When we watch movies, a lot of the time it's to see people succeed. And anytime like a sports movie or some other kind of movie, one of my favorite, there's a kind of 90s sports movie that I'll draw attention to called Little Big League. and it's about a boy becoming a manager of a Major League Baseball team. And I like that one better than like Rookie of the Year and some of the other ones because doing a good job. I can't see him being a player. But in the movie, spoiler alert, they actually lose, and they tried their best. And it's just one of those things where it wasn't anyone's fault. They didn't do anything wrong, but he went as far as he could and he lost. You could say the same about Rocky to a certain extent, the original Rocky, but he didn't exactly lose. He lost the fight, but he won the war, basically, is kind of the point. He won everyone's heart.
He won the distance. He won the distance.
Actually, right. I'm not even talking about going the distance. I'm talking about actual objective failure in a film and actually being able to rise above it and, hang your head low, but then say, hey, we did our best. I think that's a really valuable lesson, especially in a kid's movie. And I think they do really get that across very well in the story. I think that Jack's inner turmoil is actually pretty well explored. I think it's one of the most well-explored parts of the whole piece. The rest of it tends to be pretty ambiguous, but there's a lot that you can read into it, especially with Sally, and especially I think with the little kid villains. Quite honestly, I think a lot of people tend to read in their own story into this because there's a lot of room for head rewriting. And I think that for a kids movie, sometimes that can be a good thing. Sometimes, for other movies, it's an artistic choice that there's more negative space to draw than positive space, if that makes sense, using an artistic metaphor. And I think they did it well, but not perfectly in this movie. So I do applaud them for that.
Okay. I will say, I do love Zero, by the way, the dog, the ghost dog. Mm-hmm. I would, dude, honestly, if dogs could come back looking like that, I would love to have one. But unfortunately, spiritually, it doesn't work that way. But one thing I do like is kind of they hint that there's other worlds, like the holiday worlds, apparently, like, the holiday trees, like, those are like the doors that enabled people to get into other people's worlds, I guess. There's like Easter Town, or Easter World, Thanksgiving Town. Mm-hmm. I kind of like that.
Oh, yeah.
I like that a lot. It's kind of showing that it has its own, like, the holidays have their own self-contained universes. And are we to assume that? I guess we can assume.
I'm really surprised that no one's tried to milk that cash cow yet, right? for a multiverse, because we have so many others.
Well, the thing that I'm kind of shocked they haven't. Well, I don't think the movie was very successful enough to warrant a sequel. I think they've done other stuff in this world.
I think now it's popular enough where they could do it.
Yeah.
That's my point.
Yeah. So. What was I going to say? I was going to say another thing, too. I think the romance... But I was talking about the romance earlier. I mean, do you think the romance works between Sally and Jack? Did we talk about that? I think we did.
You talked about it some. Do I think it works? I think that it's ambiguous and meant to be somewhat innocent and naive, and I think that's meant for children. It's meant to be a very basic, easy to understand romance for children, as opposed to something more heavy but still easy to understand, like a Beauty and the Beast. I think that it generally works, but it isn't great by any stretch.
Now, one thing One thing I was going to say, like, I kind of found it interesting that these two people are kind of... I actually thought for the longest time that Sally was actually like a dead corpse. actually, and she was sewn back together. But then I found out that she's actually a scarecrow. A scarecrow, a rag doll, actually. But I actually found it interesting that they kind of represent non-living material, actually. Like, well, I mean, other than Jack the Skeleton, he's obviously a skeleton, but they kind of represent life and death, or death in a certain way, because of who they are as characters, their outward appearance. I kind of wondered if that was supposed to symbolize something. Did you catch on to that by any chance?
So, are you talking about their physical attributes?
Yeah. Like, are they
like a metaphor of some sort?
Yeah. Did you kind of get a sense of what Burton was going there with their looks in that sense? Like, are they supposed to be representations of?
Well, I mean, anytime you do animation, especially if it's stylized, and this is just about as stylized as you can get, you tend to do a, obviously the mayor has two faces, kind of switches back and forth, but they're not like polar opposite faces. One is just a coward, and one's kind of like, "Your illustrious mayor," So it just kind of shows that he's, to me, that kind of shows that he's a puppet.
It shows you he's incompetent. He can't do anything. Like, it's like everything really hinges on exactly. Everything seems to hinge on Jack making them happy or helping them. And,
right.
And they have like this yearly what is it? The Pumpkin King night, and they all get together and they plan this stuff all a year in advance, but. But it seems like the mayor is a completely incompetent kind of individual, and he can't do anything right without Jack having to be involved in some capacity, or massively.
Right, exactly. And so they kind of make him very, very small, and sort of, generally, a center, that's an example. And then Jack is larger than life. Everyone can see him. He stands above the crowd, so to speak. Then you got Sally, who is, I guess you could say, the falling apart could be a metaphor for how she feels about Jack.
Mm-hmm.
That's, I think, maybe a bit of a stretch, but it's kind of there. So I mean, there's connections and things. One of the things I want to say, definitely for sure, I think my favorite thing about this entire movie is Oogie Boogie's voice, and anytime he sings.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's slightly off topic from what we were talking about, but I mean, man, is that good. Like, honestly,
yeah.
I really wanted to know more about Oogie Boogie, because he's just so, he's so happy about being bad.
Yeah, no.
And I like villains that do that sometimes, and he's just, especially when he's like, you're joking, it's just, he's just,
I like his accent, by the way.
Gleefully disgusting and happy with himself.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Just fantastic voice work. Let me find out who did. Yeah, he did an amazing job. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I did like Chris Sheridan's voice, actually, the speaking voice. But all the singing that you heard was actually Danny Elfman. And I didn't know that Danny actually played the voice until much later on, actually, or at least the singing voice. But they did a pretty good job of making rhythmically, work together. Like, they flowed in very well. Like, they pretty very similar voices, actually.
But yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I know I kind of was criticizing the music, at least, lyrically speaking, but I think this really does have a very catchy soundtrack as well.
Halloween is a classic. Anything with Oogie Boogie is great. And I do kind of like that one song with Jack that I failed. The Sally's song is actually really pretty. There's a Essence, and she does a really, really good job with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it's Danny Elfman, for crying out loud. I mean, like, how can he not go wrong with a Danny Elfman Tim Burton score? I mean, I think
I'm not even like a big Danny Elfman fan, but he did do a good job in this movie.
Yeah, no, he definitely did, and I think that's one of the things that really stands out to me as a positive with this film. Again, I know I criticized it, but I think that's one of the things that it has going for it. And I think this is the type of movie that needs to be a musical, actually. In the same way, because I know he did. What was the other movie that he did? Oh gosh, what was that movie? Tim Burton. Sweeney Todd, the Demon Barber. You know, that's a movie that definitely...
Sweeney Todd.
Yeah, that's a movie you can say, oh, that came from this. Because it has a lot of similarities in that regard. I mean, yeah, it's Tim Burton, but I think it has a lot of the score and that kind of... how can I describe it? It's the score... There's kind of a dour feeling to the music. But it's in the same...
To me, it sounds like the moon looks. I'll be honest with you. That's what it sounds like to me. It sounds just like the moon looks.
It's definitely moody. It's not dour, but it's very moody that fits the circumstances. It's like one of those songs or scores that, like, it really matches the circumstances and the environment. That's a very rare skill for composers. And there's a lot of movies that do that. I mean, like Star Wars and Lord of the Rings, and The Godfather. But I think this joins them in that same manner too. It fits more than just as a good score that stands on its own 2 feet. It works within the settings of the film, actually.
Yep. You got more for this one, or do you want to go ahead and start wrapping it up?
I know there's like so much more we can. We're like, as a Christian, what are some things that you take away from this movie? Because I know this, because we kind of said, like, our parents kind of told us not to watch it anymore. But what do you think is in this film that kind of alarms some people a little bit? Is it the scary imagery? Is it something?
Obviously. Well, I think that the culture around Halloween generally just, it tends to be obsessed with death, and we as Christians are called, unto life, apart from death. And, death is something that we're going to go through, but we're also going to come back to life. That's part of what we believe. So I think that just being focused and obsessed with death, with decay, with things that are consequences of sin tends to be unhelpful a lot of the time. Not to say that we can't delve into darkness, and as Christians, I think we should. And I think that my parents and a lot of other people who kind of had a knee-jerk reaction to it and its visceral nature back in the 90s have kind of changed their tune a little bit on this. But I don't ever plan on, for example, letting my kids ever dress as skeletons or witches or ghosts for Halloween. I plan on even calling it Hero-ween and actually celebrating heroes and good characters and things like that. I honestly feel like the idea of the holiday is great, but the focus of it on death and darkness and decay is just kind of superfluous when we know that we have a savior who has already won the battle. It seems like dwelling on dark things for the sake of dwelling on dark things, as opposed to creating, I think that, I'm not saying that Nightmare Before Christmas did this. I think that they created a world that just has a shifted aesthetic toward darker and grayer and more, I think it's more about color and shape than it is about actually
context. I think it's because the context of the
content. Yeah, exactly. It's more of an aesthetic.
Yeah, it's more aesthetic. I think the context of the story. I mean, it's the funny thing about this story is that Jack, kind of screws up Christmas in a way where he's trying to, he's trying to become Santa Claus. He wants to become the Santa Claus. So him and his whole town get together and they try to. This is they're mistaken of what they think Christmas is about, and they're trying to function in that holiday where the elves and the Christmas elves and the reindeers, they work properly in that setting because of who they are. Their functions, are to scare people, and they don't have the functionality of that Christmas. They don't function in that setting. Now, this could have been an interesting plot twist. Is they find the characters then find that meaning of life through the spirit of Christmas, and does the movie do that? No, not really. But maybe that could have been the realization.
No, but I think
Jack maybe
they don't really. Yeah, that's what I was saying. Jack gets it. I think he really does. It's just that Jack can't recreate it. Jack can consume it in a way that is beneficial to him, and he's actually inspired to do things. But he cannot recreate that work. And so it would be like me going out and trying to be Tim Burton, and I can't be Tim Burton because I'm Joshua David Lane.
Mm-hmm.
It's the idea of, your job, you can appreciate art all you want, but you're never going to be Vincent van Gogh. You're never going to be, and it's not that a level of good versus better or whatever. It's just that we're all different and we see the world different. There's actually I'm gonna pull this up really quickly. Give me one sec, Chris, if you don't mind.
Sure, no problem.
I really do think that this thing will be good. Let's see. I'm gonna read this quote from an old author, and I'll preface it and everything.
Sure, yeah. Make sure you give him credit because he wants the credit.
Oh, absolutely. So, Chris, are you familiar with the book, The Princess and the Goblin?
I've heard of it, but I've never read it.
It was written by George MacDonald.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And George MacDonald's a little bit of a controversial figure in Christianity. Some people think that he was a universalist, but he has some very interesting things to say in some of his sermons. And this is a unspoken sermon. It's a written sermon that he gave. Okay, here we go. Page 152. Okay. For God, and lift up a different humanity to the common Father. And for each, God has a different response. With every man, he has a secret, the secret of the new name. And I say not that is the innermost chamber, but a chamber into which no brother, nay, no sister can come. From this it follows that there is a chamber also, O God, humble and accept my speech, a chamber in God himself into which none can enter but the one, the individual, the peculiar man, out of which chamber that man has to bring revelation and strength for his brother. This is that for which he was made, to reveal the secret things of the Father. So each Christian has a different role in preaching different parts of the Word of God in different ways and demonstrating it in different ways throughout their whole life. They show different aspects of God to different people. Some judgment and justice, some people mercy, some people righteousness and holiness. There's all kinds of different aspects of God that are shown in different ways through different means and times and personalities and characters. And that's kind of what you're getting at with the whole body metaphor that you're talking about with Adventures.
Specifically gifted and functioned to how we minister to God. Because not everyone is built to be a pastor or to be a deacon. They have that requires a certain talent and skill that other people just may not have, or they have to develop. Is it possible for people to learn stuff? Oh, well, duh. Everybody can learn something. It's just a matter of if you're passionate about it and if it's something that you can comprehend. So that's like the main function of how you are to respond, or how you're supposed to work in this type of environment in that sense. But yeah, no, I think that's a good note to end on with this show. Joshua, final thoughts on A Nightmare Before Christmas, and do you recommend it?
I think that it's I think it's a fun kids movie. I don't think it's very deep. There's not a lot to it, but it is very aesthetically interesting. I think I put it in the same vein as something like Where the Wild Things Are. Just a fun kids novelty that has a little bit of deeper meaning to it that you can kind of read into, but not a lot. And as far as recommending it, I think that anyone who has any kind of interest in gothic and Halloween imagery, by all means, for it. But don't expect anything dark content-wise, really, and don't really look for something too deep either.
No, I don't. I think the people who've reacted kind of negatively towards it in those regards, I think it's a shame, because it's a very... I think if you're going to be a student of film and want to study, architect and, art decoration, I think this is definitely the right type of film. I think it's also the proper film to introduce people to Tim Burton, because it definitely it gets.
Oh, definitely.
I think it definitely establishes, like, okay, this is what a Tim Burton movie is, somewhat. Beautiful stuff, beautiful imagery.
Really, honestly, it's like what two guys who came up through CalArts together, John Lasseter and Tim Burton. And I think what Toy Story is to John Lasseter, Nightmare Before Christmas is to Tim Burton, and it'll always be that way.
Yeah, I would agree. I 100% agree with you on that. Or Taxi Driver to Martin Scorsese, or Heavenly Creatures to Peter Jackson. So
Star Wars to George Lucas, and American Graffiti
as well. Well, I would more so Star Wars in that regard.
Less so.
Yeah. Anyway, I highly recommend this film as well, and please check it out. And well, that's gonna do it for tonight, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very excited that we're finally getting back on track with this show. And please, audiences, we welcome you to like our Facebook page, like us on Twitter, follow us on those pages. Please email us at s2spodcast@gmail.com. Also, please send us some reviews. We've been getting a lot of reviews lately, and some and a lot of love on our iTunes page. So please keep us sending us some really good reviews. We really appreciate it. Also got some cool news. I'm going to be on some podcasts, and hopefully I can wrestle some of these other guys to join me on those shows. I've been invited onto the Underrated Movie Podcast, which those guys are awesome. If you like hearing about movies that don't get the type of love that they should, check them out. I've been invited to be on their Equilibrium review. And also, what's it called again? The I Seen It podcast as well. So getting some exposure. I'm really excited about it. It's going to be nice for a change for me to sit back and to and being asked questions as opposed to or not being the driving factor of a show. So that's going to be nice for a change.
Indeed.
Anyway, folks, so we're going to bid you all a good night, and we will catch you very soon, okay? Cheers.
Ow!
What's this? What's this? There's color everywhere. What's this? There's white things in the air. What's this? I can't believe my eyes. I must be dreaming. Wake up, Jack. This isn't fair. What's this? What's this? What's this? There's something very wrong. What's this? There's people singing songs. What's this? The streets are lined with little creatures laughing. Everybody seems so happy. Have I possibly gone daffy? What is this? What's this?
Anyway, since we're kind of tonight's movie, let me guess that.
Whoa, make sure you edit that out.
Oh gosh. I am really bad tonight. Edit. Maybe that might be a blooper reel. I might put that at the blooper.
You do a bleep.
I will.
That'll be funnier. Bleeps are always funnier.
You have to do them tastefully. You can't do them obnoxiously. Anyway, sorry about that. I heard Ian do it one time actually, which was actually funny.
Oh, I'm sure.